Abe had kinetic sand for brain, like not plastic, not moldable. It would just be immediately. It's just nope, new shape. Here we are. Old shape is gone forever.
It's a winning strategy.
Cast Iron Brains, a podcast desperately searching for someone to blame for fire. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori is here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
Yep, also fine.
Also fine. Tonight is Monday, January 13th, 2025. Abe, you have a good weekend?
Yeah, nice weekend full of playoff action, college and the NFL. There was also on Friday down here in Atlanta, we don't get a lot of this, snow, like real snow. It wasn't like half an inch, maybe like some ice and people drive erratically. This was like 3-4 inches of proper snow. It didn't last all day. I mean, it lasted all of Friday and that was about it. But for one day, Atlanta looked like, Denver, Colorado or something. It was
Did
pretty
you
nice.
have, you work from home. Did you have a snow day on top of?
So during my, I somehow fit this in my 30-minute lunch break, all of this. I went over to the local park, Piedmont Park, and I was interested to see like what people do whenever it snows. And either people have like,
The humans do?
Like an alien observing
Yes.
the humans. Yeah.
Atlanta is not known for snow, yet everybody, like every other person, seems to have like some snow-related get up, like either some sort of sled or some sort of like somebody was skiing through the city. Like it was weird.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I know people. There are a lot of transplants in the city, and also others, travel to like Vail and other places for their skiing needs. But there were so many people that were like ready for this one day out of 10 years that happens, and they were just having a go at the snow. The snow got very slushy and bad like pretty quickly, but for like 4 hours, pretty solid snow.
4 hours over your lunch break, huh?
Give or take. Once I enter my lunch period, it's like the end zone. It becomes infinity at some point.
Yeah. What you're noticing out there, your fellow Georgians with all of their surprisingly deep array of snow day gear and tools and various other winter accoutrement, speaks to, I think, the just unspeakable plenty of the world in which we live as Americans, right? Like, it's hard to imagine that 40 years ago, for example, anyone would have had, like, anyone besides, like
weird ski people.
That one freak in your neighborhood who goes, like, either on a ski trip or just moved from Boston or something. But, like, even then, like, if you're somebody who's a transplant from the Northeast, you wouldn't have brought all that shit with you 40 years ago.
That's true.
Like, you're leaving all of this behind because you're going to move into the great American South. You don't need any of your bullshit. But because we live in the age, the post 1980s, Nixon goes to China in the 70s, and then we live in this China joining the global marketplace and becoming they exported like $1 trillion. I forget what their net.
Yeah,
there was a piece of news
yeah.
this week that showed that China's net exports were like over $1 trillion or something last year. Which is just fucking bonkers for a population of over 1 billion people, right? Like you have 1.5 billion people in your country, and you're still shipping. You're the manufacturing center of the world, shipping trash all over the goddamn globe. Unthinkable that just a generation ago that all of those people were walking around Atlanta with their fucking Gore-Tex suits on and their sleds. would have just had that. And it's not just the China factor. We live in these fucking, everybody's got their 2,000 square foot houses, right? We have all of this fucking space.
Basement.
You've got to fill it with something. It might as well, fuck, Amazon's got a deal on winter gear. Do I need winter gear? No. But like,
What if it snows?
it'd be stupid not to buy it. They're practically giving it away.
I don't know how I stumbled onto this YouTube wormhole, but there was like a YouTube video that I watched recently where they were talking about how America is unique in the need for storage space. Like there's businesses to be had in like just storage space because Americans have so much shit that they can't get rid of easily.
Residential, right? We're not talking about warehouses of
Yes.
like companies that have overbought or whatever, right?
Right.
No, we're talking about human beings who have 2,000 square foot homes with basements or attics or guest rooms and all of the rest, who simply have too much shit
Right.
and need to go put it there
Yes.
for easy access later.
Right. And like if you compare it to other countries, there isn't that same demand for the businesses. But in America, like everywhere you go, there's like storage space. So maybe there is some sort of issue there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We hang on to trash at our house.
Now,
so
Lori
it's
watched
quite-
Lori watched a trash documentary this week.
Yeah, about how you shouldn't throw stuff away. But it was more about how you shouldn't buy stuff than how you shouldn't how you should hold on to your trash.
Yeah.
It was just don't buy the thing.
Yeah. Anyway, that sounds fun. Did you mold any snow creatures, snowmen
No.
or snowballs or anything?
No. I'm sure my siblings will correct me on this, but I don't think I did a lot of that snowballs throwing at people, but I never actually sat there and make some snow person. I did the snow angels
did
when I
your
was a kid
siblings
in
do that to
Canada.
you?
You've got a
with them?
lot going for you, Abe, as
Yeah.
a human being. The soul of an artist, I don't think is something that I would attribute to you.
Spot on.
That's what makes this work, one way or another. Let's see. What did we do, Lori?
We watched football.
Have we got anecdotes? We just watched a bunch.
Did
of
you guys
football.
get a second batch of snow? Because you guys had
No,
it.
we got the
No.
lightest of
I
dustings.
made bread.
Oh.
I made a lot of bread.
Nice.
But no, not a second snow worth
No.
talking about. Our current snow is still
there.
out there.
It won't go away. I was going to take down the Christmas lights outside. I can't. They're trapped under ice. Oh, well.
That we still have 3 inches or so of just solid ice on the ground out there, with the exception of where, if you had done the work, you scraped it off of where it landed initially, right? Like I talked about the shoveling last week.
There are people that have not.
There are people that have not still. And it's just not going
It's just
anywhere. And
ice.
what's funny is in the last few years of snows that we've gotten, we're in the Mid-Atlantic here. We're not in the fucking Northeast. We're not. This isn't Maine. The snow comes and it sticks around for a day or two, and the sun comes up and it melts the snow and it goes away. Not so this week. Our snow hasn't gone anywhere, and
Like
finally
on the
today,
grass,
Wow.
it's just there.
right? Finally today, it got up to like 49 degrees.
Yeah.
Maybe it touched 50, and I was able to go out onto our porch with my shovel and finally shovel the snow off of our porch, which I had neglected that first day because I was shoveling for 4.5 hours for our neighbors. But I couldn't get it to budge
Yeah, it was just ice.
until today because it was just a solid block of ice on the porch.
The kids went back to school today, though.
Yeah,
Oh.
kids
For
had a
real?
full day
Nice.
of school. No delayed anything. They were blessedly out of the house for like a full 7.5 hours today, which was good. But yeah, fun weekend, full of mostly just sports and also a video game, which I guess we'll probably talk about at the end of the show.
Vegas videos.
I want to quickly blow through the news of the week. I had planned to not talk too much about the
through,
news.
Bob. I don't know. It's insensitive.
I want to light the fuse on this
No.
conversation and see how quickly we can burn through it.
The New York Times Sunday Puzzle this week.
You know how you might imagine like a pre-planned tweet for some corporation might go out, that could be offensive to the sensibilities of someone because of like world events unfolding,
Right.
or like you don't realize that it's Holocaust Remembrance Day, and you do something that for whatever reason strikes people as offensive to
Okay.
someone who should be remembering the Holocaust.
Found
The New York Times Sunday crossword was
Okay.
quite insensitive to the moment.
I can't see because I don't have my glasses, but consecutive clues, like the glow of the last embers in a fire, right? One clue. Next clue, completely destroyed.
Multiple clues in the
Rude.
Sunday crossword referencing fire and destruction.
Right next to each other.
I wonder how early do they lock in these.
I'm sure quite. I mean,
It's
like,
months. It's months in
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah. Also, I haven't. I mean, I'm not on like offended Twitter. I don't know what corner of Twitter that is, but I'm not on it. But I haven't seen anything on sports Twitter about people being offended about the New York Times crossword.
I think there was some Wordle
Yeah,
controversy.
it was the abortion one,
where
fetus.
it was like fetus on
They
the day
had
that
just-
they had just overturned Roe v.
Yeah.
Wade or
Wow.
something.
They changed it. Like I got fetus, but somebody else didn't.
They caught it pretty quick.
They changed it like in the day.
Yeah.
Anyway, talk about the stupid fire.
All right,
Not worth talking about.
The only thing is not. I agree. There's. It's not worth talking about because it's just.
It's just fucking sad.
It's a sad disaster, and there's probably not a lot that could have been done to
Oh, it's so
to
awful.
prevent it. And I'm amused by. I'll just say this, and this is not a full thought, and I'm just sort of bouncing it off you here, Abe. But there's something funny in this incongruity between the sort of Democrats or the progressive left-leaning technocratic side of things essentially making the argument, what was there to be done, right? The throwing up of hands that you put us in charge, we are the experts, we are the class of people who get things done, and this happened, and you can't blame us because there was just nothing to be done. While on the other hand, you have the people who are seizing upon this as a failure of leadership or government or governance in some way are the conservatives, who are always the ones who say, no, actually, you can't control any of the shit that you're trying to control. Right? Like what we have here is the expert class on the one hand saying you have to put us in charge of things because otherwise, because we are the adults in the room, we are the ones who can take care of problems should they arise. We are the bureaucrats and the technocrats who get things done when the pencil pushers who just know how to make the world work. And usually what you have is, on the other hand, the nihilistic right-wingers who are like, you guys are out of your
Thoughts
fucking
and
minds.
prayers.
Right.
You can't control anything. And it's a fucking loser's game to try to pretend like you're actually in charge here as a group in a systematic sort of way, right? Like it's all a fucking sham, and government doesn't do anything. Meanwhile, these are the people that are now furious at the government for not doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing, and on the other hand, the technocrats are like, well, fucking wind.
Things
Like,
happen, yeah. Can't
we
prevent
didn't,
this.
we didn't
yeah.
think about wind.
Right.
What do you expect us to do with all of this wind?
It is interesting that for a lot of people, maybe it's just online people, they can't talk about anything outside of the framing of politics. Like, it's got to be seen in that light. And it seems to be like a reaction to a past incident. And I'm thinking of when Texas froze, there were a lot of pot shots taken politically based, like I think Ted Cruz fucked off to Cancun.
Ted Cruz goes to Cancun, and it's so funny because Karen Bass this time is
Yes.
traveling internationally. Why do we have these fucking these obvious parallels that present themselves in this way? She wasn't on a fucking pleasure cruise, I don't think.
Yeah, she was there for like some sort of like inauguration, like in Ghana or something. I don't know what the connection is between mayor
But she had
of Los
specifically
Angeles.
said, like, I'm not the kind of person who's going to fuck off. And then, as it turns out, she has very specifically fucked off at the worst possible moment.
It is remarkable how, you're right. I saw the article where, like, when she was running for mayor, she's like, currently as a member of Congress and the committee that she's in. She finds many reasons to travel abroad, and she once I become mayor, there's not a lot of business. I mean, occasionally, when she went to France for the Olympics, it's coming to LA, so there's some argument to be made there. But all these trips to Africa, there's no real connection, right? And it's on the taxpayer dime, right? It's not like a personal trip, right? So she's traveling. But in any event, basically, I think anytime something like that happens, that's what's gonna be remembered. Like the Ted Cruz connection to the Texas thing, and then also there was some sort of grid issue where all the states are part of some larger grid except for Texas, and so there was some complaining politically, the conservatives don't know what they're doing, and now it's coming the other way. We're you guys need to brush the fire or whatever. That argument that Trump made years ago, that was kind of thrown into the mix again. But it seems to be anytime some sort of disaster happens, if you can gain politically by making some shitty argument, it will be made. There won't be let's all band together and throw a couple dollars towards the Red Cross and see what can happen, and hopefully everybody's fine. It's just failed leadership, or your system failed, or this is proof positive of whatever. There isn't any restraint on that argument.
No, because anybody that is exhibiting restraint is now just leaving room for someone to not exhibit restraint.
Yes.
Right? Anybody who doesn't open their mouth to sound off like an asshole is simply leaving the microphone open for someone to open their mouth and sound off like an asshole.
Right.
It's like the TikTok thing. People are acting like banning TikTok is a political thing when it's not. And
that's we're a week out, right, before that's all shut down for good.
Yeah, TikTok is encouraging people to download alternate versions of the app so that they don't lose access to it or something like that. Ultimately, I mean, this is a complete, very brief aside because I don't fucking care. The government can't come and take the app off your phone if you've already got it on your phone. And it will just come down to the government telling the Android App Store and the Apple App Store to not put the thing on their marketplaces.
But if you already have it, you just won't get any updates. But you'll have the
you already have it, but you can sideload the updates, right? And you just go.
That's true.
When I first installed a gambling app on my phone, it wasn't permitted on the. It might still not be, actually. Come to think of it, I don't know. When I installed FanDuel, I couldn't get FanDuel, the gambling app, from the Google Play Store. I had to go get it through the website, and then get special permission on the inside of my phone to allow it to all work. You just have to do that same thing. You just download it from some website that's got a .nz on the end of it or something instead of a .com, and then you're going to be good to go. Anyway, back to the fires, I guess. It also opens the opportunity, and I know this is purely shit eating, as you're saying. It allows the Charlie Kirks of the world to say the bad thing, but also for whatever it's worth, if you are a bureaucrat in the fire prevention or fire putting out space, a functionary in that space, some sort of administrator.
Stop saying space.
And you have ever uttered anything about how your primary concern is equity, or making sure that we have the firefighting force is full of people that more clearly represent the community that they serve, you have opened yourself up to criticism in a way that it might not be fair, it might not be at all reasonable, it might not matter, but you've done that, right? If you've ever uttered any word about how it's NPR years ago, in the wake of the George Floyd situation, they essentially changed their mission statement. They said that our North Star is going to be diversity and equity, right? We're going to be more concerned. We will always be looking to raising up the right kind of voices to tell stories that previously haven't been told. And if your North Star is equity, in terms of the stories that you want to tell, in terms of the hiring that you do, in terms of who you put on the air, then it cannot be anything else, right? You have said that the most important thing is equity, or a person's racial makeup, as opposed to whatever it is, free speech, journalistic integrity, a commitment to something like objectivity, anything else that you might previously have said was the important function of your task as this public service, you've now put in the back seat behind something that you're calling equity. You've now opened yourself up to criticism along those lines anytime you fail to do your job that you're actually tasked with doing, which is delivering the news to the American public. Same with the fucking fires. And I know that, like I said, most of the criticism that like somehow the wildfires in Los Angeles are because DEI is fucking bonkers, right? It's completely fucking insane. But if you have ever uttered a word about how what matters is equity in the firefighting space, then you fucked up, right? In a profound way, you have opened the door to that sort of criticism, whether it's fair or not.
You know what's interesting about the developments out in California? So Adam Carolla had been making the rounds, complaining that back in the 80s, like he was not picked to join whatever firefighter team or group that he wanted to join, and he attributed that lack of selection to DEI. I guess back then it would be affirmative action. There was no DEI back then. I'm assuming he meant affirmative action or something like that. But
this is a story that he's not just telling now for the first time, by the way.
Yes.
This is something that is in the Adam Carolla rhetorical playbook for as long as I
It's
fucking
canon.
can
It's
remember.
Adam Carolla canon.
Right, but also in that rotation is his not being selected to work at Taco Bell, right? So it's a weird thing now. He's like repurposing this like for the culture war fodder. But I didn't look this up, but like are minority groups overrepresented with firefighters? Is there some sort of weird disparity in the hiring? Like it seems like they probably hired at whatever racial composition exists in that neighborhood.
So
right?
there's I remember a few years ago, there was the thing about somebody was talking about women firefighters and how they had to dramatically lower the standards for because the firefighter test involved throwing a 150-pound sack of rice or something over your shoulder and getting it down a flight of stairs, and like that was precluding the vast majority of women applicants because they simply, and of course we would now say that's a lie. There's no biological difference between the strength of a man and a woman, and that's just that's a result of the fact that, for example, I put a 150-pound bag of rice on my son's shoulders and make him run up and down the stairs twice a day, and I never expect that of my daughter. And so he has been acculturated into carrying 150 pounds on his back in a way that my daughter has not, because I'm a sexist as the person raising these two people.
She would do it so much sooner than him.
Anyway, there was some. I don't remember the details of this story from years ago, but
I remember that happening.
There was some uproar about the fact that like the standards for becoming a firefighter in some community somewhere had been adjusted to allow more women to become firefighters, and that inherently put people more in danger. And I think that they're like, I know it's shitty to talk about, and like I'm not a reactionary who wants to talk about these sorts of things, but like the thing that like a firefighting crew, and I know this from my extensive research by watching the film Fireproof, starring Kirk Cameron.
We did recently watch Fireproof.
By the Shorewood Baptist Church people.
The documentary Fireproof with Kirk Cameron.
Firefighters have a similar sort of brotherhood type situation as like you try to build up in a military unit, right? Like in the same way that like a military unit isn't actually, this sounds, I suppose this would be, not to shit on the troops here, but they're not fighting for truth, justice, in the American way. You don't drill into them at boot camp that what matters is your love and respect for the Constitution. Right? You can't get the troops of World War II to storm the beaches of Normandy because they care so much about the United States Constitution. They're doing that because they care about the dude next to them and behind them. Right? You build this brotherhood. You might even call it, as HBO did, a band of brothers who will fight for each other rather than necessarily for any great cause, right? And so, like, I think similarly in a firehouse, there the way that nurses or EMTs talk about people is that they're sort of less than human, right? Like your patients, like sure, there are some nurses who care a great deal about the people there, and they're just trying to make them feel better and take care of them and all of that. But like the gallows humor that goes along with that is you're talking about the patients as less than human in some way, right? And the person that you relate to is not the patient because they're just, this is a fucking constant churn of awful humanity. It's the person that you go to work with every day that fucking matters, right?
It is.
And so like, and so, like, I mean, yeah, you're doing great. You're doing a great thing, right? Your service to humanity is great. But a firefighter isn't going into the burning building to save the child that he doesn't know. He's doing it because the guy next to him, like, he wouldn't be able to show his fucking face at the firehouse the next day if he didn't go into the burning building with the guy next to him, right? Like, it's that brotherhood thing that gets built up. So to some extent, if you cannot build a cohesive unit, right? This is like a Pete Hegseth argument, arguably. I was
going to say, it sounds familiar, actually.
What you want is to build as strong a cohesive unit as you possibly can of people who will fight not for the faceless rabble, but for each other. Right?
And it's way easier to do when they all have penises, right?
And it's way easier to do when they can all relate to one another. It's just true that the more... Like there was that study that came out years ago.
Experts.
I think that Derek Thompson mentioned it on a recent podcast that kind of got memory hold because what the study showed was that the more diverse your neighborhood was, the more likely you were to spend time alone in your home. But like the more homogenous the society, the more likely you were to spend time out and about in your neighborhood at the local restaurant and bullshitting with your neighbors, right? Like it's just how humans work. It's an unfortunate reality of our tribal nature, right? Which is that we get along better with people who more or less. It doesn't mean that there's anything that there's some inherent badness to us necessarily. It's just the reality of the situation as it turns out.
Also, I mean, all of that is fine, but like there isn't any evidence that women firefighter. I mean, I don't even know what the numbers are. I imagine it's like 90% of the firefighters are men, probably. Like, just making that up. But it's probably something on the order of 90-10. The ratio of men to women. I never hear any of these stories about like, oh, the fire got out of control because that woman was holding us up. Maybe that happens somewhere.
Because you've got to be a bit fucking daft to want to run into a burning building,
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, women have an inherent self-preservation instinct. Like, we're the ones...
You got to be a little touched. You need us
to keep going for the whole people. Right. And that awesome 9/11 documentary, I wonder what happened.
Loose Change.
Not what?
Loose Change was the conspiracy theory movie.
No, not that one. A more recent one than that. Not the firefighters, but like the regular working people. Mm-hmm. The ones who stayed back to make sure everybody got out okay were all men. Right. And it's fair to say they were all idiots because they're all dead now because they stayed in a building that was going to fall down. Right. Like, the women all smartly got out.
But all that is socialization, right? I mean, if you raise kids,
but it's not just socialization necessarily because we're the ones that carry the young.
Right.
Right. Well, but that's just, they would argue that's just socialization.
You just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. We'll not know.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not just that it is harder for people to come and be comrades and bros.
The point is,
when some of them are women, it's just that women are less likely, like you're saying, to want to go into a burning building. Yeah. In much
the same way that, like, harping about DEI when you're the firefighter bureaucrat on the television program opens you up to a certain level of attack, good faith or bad faith, whatever. The viral videos of the women firefighters not running into the burning building are going to speak volumes to a certain type of person.
Similar to the in July when there was the assassination attempt on Trump, there was like some footage of like a woman Secret Service agent kind of like just fumbling to find her weapon or whatever. Right. And people are like, see, like not ready. Or I think there are people that are just like ready to say like anti-woman things, and as soon as some opportunity presents itself, here they go. I do have a question though. Where in the equity discussion in California do incarcerated firefighters fit in? Because like I'm reading upwards of 1,000 incarcerated inmates are being used to fight the fires. They're getting paid
at like less than $6 an hour.
Yeah,
I think, right?
like $5.80 an hour, and they're all into it. I guess they're like, hey, it beats just being in prison all day.
You get to go outside.
Yeah, you go outside. The thing is, like, I don't think firefighters or these crews hire felons. So, like, you get to be a firefighter while you're in prison, but you're not eligible once you're out, unless they expunge your record for whatever reason. So it's kind of weird. But, like, they're using whomever they can. Like, there are Mexican firefighters coming up, Canadian firefighters are coming down. It seems like it's all hands on deck. So, like,
Abe, you already said the criminals were fighting the fires. You don't have...
It's redundant. What are people? How are people? Are they saying that?
No, I don't want to get into it. I'm just.
Okay.
I know that we just had a long conversation about something that I claimed that I didn't want to get into, but.
Oh, that's the theme of your podcast.
23-3 now, heading to the half. I think with an extra point to come. It's a good thing I hedged.
But is it a good thing you didn't cash out and get the $300?
I'm fine with not cashing out.
Okay.
I think cashing out is for cowards and losers. Do you think we are in any position yet, Abe, to judge whether or not this is a failure of governance or administration, like one way or another? Or is it just the fact that, like, we had a couple of rainy seasons in a row in California, which encouraged a bunch of growth, and then there's been no rain this season, and so all of that growth that grew in the previous rainy seasons and didn't burn, but just grew, has now dried itself out. It was ripe for this sort of thing to happen.
Terrible.
We have these winds that are famous winds in
They
California.
are also frequently a crossword answer. Santa Ana.
Right, the Santa Ana winds apparently blowing at like hurricane levels, up to 100 miles an hour. Was this an inevitability, or was this something that was preventable in some way, or can we simply not know yet?
From what I'm gathering, a lot of the impacted neighborhoods were affluent, right? So if there were opportunities to prevent this fire from happening, the affluent would find a way to do that. Maybe hire some private firefighters or something.
Which they do, right? And
But
many have, in fact.
I know, but like it didn't seem to do much good for many of them, right? They're all over my television, like James Woods, like crying about like his lapsed firefighters or fire insurance, and others are like complaining for one reason or the other. It seems like unless you're like Oprah rich, like if you're just like regular rich, your home was not spared. And so like I don't know what could be done to prevent this. This is going to be like
you said that you gathered that they were affecting affluent neighborhoods. Do you know how I gathered? I also gathered that information. I gathered that information by watching the BBC News and the PBS NewsHour. This is not a joke. This is not my old Judy Woodruff joke. But the people who've been interviewed, like the first couple times, I didn't like it. Didn't quite hit me, and then they were interviewing an attractive young lady on the
Well spoken, probably.
Very well spoken, very attractive. And I realized the thing that tied all of these disaster victims together was that they were all beautiful and smart.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is
L.A., not Louisiana.
this ain't the Bayou, right? This is
L.A., not L.A.
This is not Tornado Alley, where we go talk to somebody who looks like Josh in Josh Heupel's family tree, where they're just full of Hostess snack cakes and Little Debbie's and whatnot. And the only reason that they survived this natural disaster is that they don't have any bones inside. They're all just gelatinous creatures who just roll around when gale force winds approach them. And like this is, I'm sorry, it's just a different class of victim that we were seeing interviewed in the wake of this. And that was sort of, I mean, not to say it was refreshing,
right.
but like,
But But it was refreshing.
It was a different class of humanity, to put it as disgustingly as possible, I suppose.
Right.
Who were affected by this? It's not the sort of person that you usually see interviewed when natural disasters are happening for whatever reason. I think that probably there was better fire management to be done than has been done, and I think that just sort of goes without saying. And I don't think that it would have been done better had Ron DeSantis been the governor of California and Gavin Newsom been the governor of Florida, right? Like I don't think that
it's impossible.
Putting somebody else in charge changes the culture,
Right.
or the preparation in such a way that actually fundamentally matters, right? Like, to some extent, I'm with the conservatives on this, not in their complaint about the failure of democratic governance, but in their more classical understanding of the world, which is we're not in charge here. And it is a fool's errand to imagine that we can have an impact on stopping the chaos and disintegration of the world around us. We are at best riding a bucking bronco over which we exercise fundamentally no control, and we can hope to hang on for dear life as long as we can. But ultimately, these are forces that are beyond our control. It is to some extent, it's amusing to me when they talk about this being like one of the worst natural disasters in the history of mankind. And obviously, every loss of life is a tragedy, and the 15 or 20 or whatever the number is at the moment that are confirmed dead as of now are a real bummer, obviously, for those involved and those who know them. But what they're talking about there is just money. It's just property value. It's
So
just
much money.
It's just the tax assessment of the house and the land underneath it. This is not fundamentally going to. There's an old Neil Bortz point that he used to make, that he would complain about the people who are being interviewed, the less than beautiful rabble in Florida or Alabama being interviewed after a hurricane, saying we lost everything, right? And Neil Bortz's point in that sort of he's one of the prickliest humanists you would ever come across, I think, in his utter hatred of humanity at the same time that he had a hope for the species, I think, in some ways. I don't know what Bortz is up to anymore.
If you
For all I know,
dead.
Yeah, whatever happened. I think he's still around, but I don't know. I don't see him on I don't listen to him on radio. I think he doesn't even have a radio gig anymore.
he had he was early to the subscriber based. Give me $5 a month and you can listen to my Bortz blast or whatever.
Okay.
But
He's 79.
I don't remember. I haven't seen him on Twitter in the last couple of
He's
years.
on
I don't think.
Instagram.
Anyway, Bortz used to say, in that heartless sort of way of his, you haven't lost everything. Like, there's a picture of a woman standing in front of a house that is burnt to cinders behind her, and she's talking about how she's lost everything. He would say, you haven't lost everything. In fact, you've just lost your things. You haven't lost anything that makes you who you are, that makes you the human being that you are. And you get to wake up tomorrow, and that's spectacular good news at the end of the day, right? And for the overwhelming majority of everyone who's suffering this unspeakable tragedy in Los Angeles, it remains the case that, like, almost no one has died from this. Granted, who knows? Maybe the cadaver dogs will, when this is all said and done, turn up hundreds or thousands of bodies, and that will be. I'll have to.
We would have heard about that by now.
All right, that will be permanently in the internet that I said that this wasn't a huge deal or loss of life.
Yeah.
But it's not like there's
But 12,000
missing.
Right. The number that I saw today is 12 or 13,000 structures that have burned to the ground, and only 15 confirmed dead so far.
What a fucking mess.
It's incredible. In fact, an incredible success of modern life to have all of these houses and businesses and places of worship be burned to the ground, and to have so relatively little loss of life. In that way, it is not. It doesn't even come close to one of the worst natural disasters of all time. I don't care that $200 billion of property went up in flames. It's that's just stuff. That's just resources that can be reallocated somewhere else, or built anew.
Neil Bortz's last tweet was February 4th, 2015.
What?
It said...
No, he's deleted tweets or something, because he was on
Okay.
Twitter long after that.
Okay. his last
His
tweet
last
that I can see.
undeleted tweet. Yeah.
If you buy Sherry's Berries, at Sherry's Berries, I suggest you use a fake email. Otherwise, they will absolutely destroy your inbox with spam weekly. Last tweet.
That sounds like a man
They took him.
who was convinced by Mark Levin to order a chocolate-covered strawberries, a dozen roses for his wife on Valentine's Day, and has been getting ceaseless emails ever since.
I think that they did something to him.
Anyway, Abe, anything on the fire you'd like to expound upon?
I will say it must be cold comfort for someone who hasn't been impacted by the fire to say like you haven't lost everything.
It sucks.
Like, I mean, even though it is true.
All right, I'm not
I'm
trying
saying
to
you. I'm talking about Neil
downplay.
Borst. It's just like this is a very it must be. I can only imagine a very disorienting experience. It's very disruptive. It's gonna take people move on. Whatever happened to that Hawaiian Lahaina, whatever that I've never heard of.
The
Like,
whole thing.
that whole place got fucked, and people just moved on. But the people that live there are still dealing with the aftermath.
Like you said earlier that if you killed someone, you'd have to kill yourself. If I lost all of my shit, I'd probably have to kill myself.
Jesus Christ.
What? I love this stuff. I love all this stuff so much.
I would be.
Who am I,
would be-
without my belongings?
As long as I still had access to my Google account and my backup.
Oh,
of
I would
my
I would
productive
happily
capacity.
disappear.
I would be fine losing all of my fucking trash.
the
Oh my god, I could disappear. You could wipe me clean. All of my data or whatever. I don't care. I need my TVs. I need my DVDs. I need my things.
From the few clips that I've seen of like people talking about what they lost, like JJ Redick, former Duke player, and current Lakers head coach, he was talking about because his home was also impacted. It was a rental. They're like, we were renting for a year until we figure out what to do next. But he's got a bunch of kids, and one of them is like like first or second grader, and he was like tearing up about like some thing the kid grew up, and they framed it. And that's gone. And basically, it's just like, I'm just thinking about those kind of things. I don't care about the building, and we can, they got plenty of money. They'll be fine on that front. But it's just like the sentimental things that he couldn't get past. Like, there's no getting that back.
And I know it's painful in the moment, but like the kid is still there.
Yeah, the kid is still alive, It would be weird to be talking about the painting.
You almost certainly took a photo of the framed thing that the kid brought home from
know.
school that day, and it's in your photo reel somewhere. I know it's not the same thing. I'm a big fan of physical objects. I would be devastated to lose certain things. I'm not.
Yeah,
so,
we have actual garbage in our house that you won't get rid of.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't mean. I'm seriously not trying to sound cavalier about the loss of property. Like it is certainly painful and life-deranging event, obviously. But also, to put it on I'm sorry, I don't put it even on the same plane as something like the Indonesian tsunami, Christmas tsunami.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's...
a quarter of a million people died in like fucking 15 minutes because water came fast, right? Like that is unthinkable. This is not that. This is not a human tragedy in that same way.
The people who didn't get affected have got to be all fucked up too.
Right.
Like the people who are fine, but their neighbors are not. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's so awful.
And I mean, most of the city is fine. It's just like, it seems just like a few pockets are fucked. And I wonder how that's going to go. Like, weren't there concerns in Hawaii that a bunch of rich fucks swooped in and took over the property of the poor? I guess that's less likely to happen in the well-to-do sort, right? They can hold on to their land while they live somewhere else until they build it up again. I guess maybe a few people can. If you're retired, you would have to maybe sell because it's going to take years to fix those neighborhoods up, right? So like if you can't wait, like if you don't have
and there's not a more restrictive. I mean, not to go reactionary again, but like there's not a more restrictive atmosphere for like doing building in the country than California.
Right.
Well, maybe this will change that.
Notoriously, they are in a situation where everything needs fucking 47 permits, and you have to make sure that you're not harming the earthworms underneath you as you
Good
build
news,
your new
they're
house.
dead.
Yes.
Joe Biden briefly gave his first interview
Remarkable.
with a major national newspaper since becoming the president of the United States. He did that a few days ago, right? And I think Susan Page of USA Today sat down with him on last Sunday or something like that for a few hours.
Wait, this is unrelated to the fires?
Unrelated to the fires. Moving on.
Then it might
here.
have to wait.
Or just real quickly, as Biden attempts to rehabilitate his image on the way out the door, suggesting that he thinks he could have beat Donald Trump or would have beaten Donald Trump had he stayed the nominee, although acknowledging that he's not sure he would have been able to do the job to the age of 85 or 86, which would have been the job he was being hired for had he been the nominee. Anything to say here about that interview or about the reaction to it? Or are you, like me, sort of just shocked by the fact that we seem to have transitioned to a Trump presidency already?
You know, I still don't feel the Trump presidency yet because he's not in office, even though he's, making the rounds. So, I think on the 20th, when he's sworn in, then it'll feel like it. To me, it still feels like a lame duck Biden era right now.
Yeah.
I am shocked that I knew that he did not give a lot of interviews, and he didn't.
Not one sit down with the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, or USA Today, or anybody else for 4 years.
Right, and yeah, so that's bizarre, and I don't know what sort of. It's too late to do anything about your legacy now, but I guess he's trying to salvage what he can. I was shocked by that. The fact that he thinks that he could beat Trump, that did not surprise me. I think these politicians have I wouldn't say a healthy ego, like an unhealthy ego, to where they think highly of themselves. Their self-image won't allow them to admit that, I was just, a drag to my ticket, and they needed to put in somebody else at the last minute, and she came up short. But I would not have been able to do it myself. I don't think a president can say that. Because for you to strive to become president, you must have that sort of ego about yourself.
I don't know. I am still hopeful that we get it. It won't come from one of the Biden loyalists who he was most surrounded by, obviously, having been in Washington for fucking 50 years. He had relationships with his inner circle that were unlike, say, an Obama presidency or a Trump presidency, where he has to build from the outside, right? He doesn't have this deep bench of loyalists to draw from. But there's somebody in there who knows the story of Joe Biden and his decline over the last few years. And I hope that we get that book. That's the book that I
Maybe
will
when he's dead.
Wait for and hope for. This week, you can expect to see a lot of things in your feed, various feeds, about the confirmation hearings going on for the Trump cabinet. Any last-minute predictions about who will or won't make it through their proceedings before a week from tonight when Trump is the president?
I would imagine that Tulsi Gabbard is going to have a tough go, and this Secretary of Defense confirmation could be very ugly, but somehow he'll make it through. Hegseth, I think that's going to be the one where there's a lot of fireworks.
He has become the cause,
Yeah.
right? He has sort of become this is the way that we show that we are loyal to Trump, right? He has become the sort of MAGA flag bearer, right? At this point, a loss for Hegseth would be embarrassing in a way that a loss for Gabbard would not be,
Right.
Because they have all seemingly united behind him. The Sunday shows this week, is it John Barrasso of Wyoming was out there doing the usual Trump loyalist thing, but being particularly effusive about both Gabbard and Hegseth. But I think Hegseth especially feels like sort of the cause of Trump at this point.
It's like a litmus test almost. Yeah. So it's basically I think not that this is the prediction show, he'll get in, but some sort of fuck up, some sort of event will happen that the defense secretary should be on top of, and then Trump, to kind of deflect, will shit can him by the end of the year. I think something like that is more likely than him failing to be confirmed.
on the ongoing fallout with Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg and Meta's decision to do away with fact checking and instead go to a community notes situation, I think all of the coverage on this has gotten it precisely wrong, both from the right side and the left side. I don't think that this is a capitulation to Trump any more than this was a than 5 years ago or 8 years ago. There was a capitulation to the left when they were ready to blame Facebook for the result of the 2016 presidential election. What Mark Zuckerberg is doing is essentially what any rational CEO of a company like Facebook would be doing, and that is more or less sort of signaling to those in power that he's on their side. Right? He did it. He did it in 2017, and he's doing it in 2025. I don't think that we can draw anything about Mark Zuckerberg's underlying political ideology or where his heart truly lies based on what he's doing here with regard to the fact-checking on the Facebook platform. And as Pesca noted, and it's an easy joke, but like, oh, what will we do now that you can't trust the information that you see on
Seriously,
Facebook?
what is everyone's problem?
And it goes back to that mindset in 2016, 2017 about like this belief that anyone who sees a meme on Facebook is going to be brainwashed by that meme and have their mind changed. And it's this belief that everyone but you is such a fucking dummy. Right? Like it's that the people who see things on the internet are just unspeakably stupid, and that they will be swayed and influenced by things that you, obviously, as a smart person, would know better. But like, we can't trust the rabble with all of this mis and disinformation that's out there. It's like, no, people are stupid and they get things wrong all the time. But like, whether or not a thing on Facebook is true or directionally true or complete bullshit doesn't fucking actually matter in terms of the way they see the world.
Right. I'll be interested to see in the before and after stats, because like my theory is that whatever mechanism Meta had in place to prevent disinformation was not very effective. And so like doing away with this ineffective tool should not change much, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a year from now you'll look back and like, oh my God, it's gotten appreciably worse since they got rid of whatever nonsense that they were using. I don't think that's going to happen, but like that would be the one thing to look for. Like a year from now, 2 years from now, is Facebook like just this uninhabitable kind of place? I mean, it kind of already is. Like,
Abe, right? That's the second clause. There is all that matters. Yeah. It is already uninhabitable. It's
awful.
It is unpleasant. It doesn't. No one. I mean, not to besmirch. I saw one post off the top of my head that I can think of in the past month that did a good thing for me. My buddy, cousin Corey, used to talk about it all the time. Also, cousin Steve's cousin, but similarly, not actually my cousin Corey, who is used to tweet out recaps of episodes of the show in as ungracious and unflattering a way as possible towards us, which was great. Corey, I don't know if you're still out there listening. Your New Year's Eve or New Year's Day post was fucking spectacular.
With the kids running?
With the kids running into the ocean and running back.
Good.
Just a post about being grateful and thinking the best of the world despite the world telling you otherwise all the time. That's the only Facebook post that I can think of recent vintage that fucking mattered at all to me. And everything else is just fucking like underwear ads and, again, posts of things that I have no interest in interacting with, to the point where I don't even know where thhere sourcing this from. Right. Like what in my history or internet browsing history has suggested to you, Facebook, that this is something that I would be interested in? It utterly baffles me. Facebook is already entirely uninhabitable. I don't know how it can possibly get worse.
It can always get worse, but yeah, I think you're right. Although now, I mean, like if Facebook continues on the current path, Twitter has been there for some time now. The plan is working. Like just all these social media apps become such shit that people stop using it. TikTok's going to be taken away. Like what will be left? People will just be back to the real world.
This is going to sound like a completely out of left field thing. Abe, what is your intuition on assisted suicide?
Oh, I am, for it.
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock.
I don't want to get into a long conversation about it, and we're not going to do a full philosophy class with Abe about it. I'll put in the show notes a link to a story in Vox from a couple of weeks ago about a Swiss suicide pod.
We talked about this. It was like we've talked about this.
I would not be surprised if we had talked about assisted suicide on the show in the past. This past fall, the Associated Press put out a lengthy report about assisted suicide out there in the world. It is becoming, or in Canada they call it MAID. It's like medically assisted induced death or something like that, to try to get away from the suicide word. But Canada has had increasingly liberalizing laws on the question. In Switzerland, you can essentially pay $11,000 and after a conversation with a doctor, get yourself killed. There's an episode of This American Life from a couple of years ago now. I don't know how old it is. I don't know if I heard a rerun or if I heard a first run version of it. That recapitulates a story from somebody's memoir about this was a writer whose husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and was going to be losing his mind over the course of the next decade or what have you. And while he was still of sound mind, came to the conclusion that that's not how he wanted to spend his remaining years on life, either for his sake or for his wife's sake. And so they went on this journey together to ultimately end his life in, I think it was Switzerland. I recall that episode as being particularly affecting, sort of emotionally. I don't remember the specific details of it. But the more that I've read, and again, there was this big report, the Associated Press did a bunch of reporting on this last fall, and then it sparked my memory again because of a piece in Vox about this 3D printed Swiss suicide pod that this guy, I think he was an Australian who ended up in Switzerland because they're big on assisted suicide there. But he invented this pod that you can then, all you have to do is buy the nitrogen, and you insert the nitrogen canister into the pod, and you climb inside, and then you push a button, and the canister releases the nitrogen into the pod. It just fills with nitrogen, and in theory, it's a relatively peaceful way to go. You become unconscious, and then very shortly thereafter, essentially strangled to death, right? Because you don't have any oxygen going to your brain. It's something that is, I have competing thoughts about it, and I've always been uncomfortable with self-annihilation as a concept, despite my sort of fundamental, I don't like to think of it in terms of political ideology at all, actually, because I think that these are questions that are far deeper than one's political leanings actually speak to, right? Like, I think that politics is a sheen on top of more fundamental questions about the way that you see the world and the way that you see life and your place in the universe. So to say even that, like, because I have inherent libertarian leanings, that somehow that colors my opinion of a question of assisted suicide, I think gets the cart and the horse in the wrong order in all likelihood, right? Like, my libertarian leanings probably stem from underlying philosophical fundaments and not the other way around. But I struggle with the notion of assisted suicide because I think that in some way a violation is happening by the people who are helping the person do the thing, even if that person has come to their conclusion entirely correctly, right? And that you can somehow assume that they have not been influenced in any way by outside forces that have pushed their hand in one direction or another any more than any of us are, right? Like we walk around the world and we are affected by the world around us, and our choices are forced in that way, certainly in ways that are both obvious and like mundane and unseen. But even if you can say that an entirely free choice is being made by the person who is electing to kill themselves, can you go on to say that free choice has no moral weight for someone helping them do the job? And I don't know that you can. I think that there is still perhaps a moral, certainly there's a moral weight there. An argument that is made is that you are doing this person a favor by helping them complete this choice that they have come to freely and of their own volition, to whatever extent you can argue for volition in this case. I still think that you run the danger of doing a wrong there as someone who is assisting in the ending of a human life.
Right.
No matter what you think about that person's decision and how rationally and correctly they came to it. And so the problem that I have with medical assistance in dying or assisted suicide is not about the decision of the person that has been made to end their life, but about the person who has to do the helping. Right. And maybe that is, maybe I'm overcomplicating
Well,
things.
let me ask you something. I recognize there's a difference, obviously, but like, what is the argument for putting to sleep? I guess is a euphemism they use for animals, right? So like a pet, a cat, a dog, they got some sort of like ailment that there's no upside, there's no way out of this. This is how it's going to be. This cat or dog is going to die, but it's going to suffer before it does, right? And so like the pet owner will make the decisions like, okay, time to take it to the wherever you take it to.
Right. We did this 3 times in 18 months or something. Yeah.
So what is the argument for that? Just to relieve them of the pain that is likely to be there?
I don't know. I know that I felt awful about it every time.
Right.
Well, that's because we were killing the cats.
Right.
It is not just that we were, quote unquote, putting the cats to sleep. It still felt fun as I held my dying cat in my arms and wept over its weak little body. I felt that I had done a wrong, and there's no escaping it. Right. Even though I might justify it or rationalize it, and like nobody would condemn me for making the decision that I came to, it still felt like a wrong. It felt like the taking of a life that was not mine to take.
Well, I have never killed them. I mean, you have a bird, a cat. You've been killing a lot. So
Seriously,
I've been revealed to be a true monster on various recordings of the show tonight.
I've never had such opportunities, but like the way that I've always thought about it is, I guess you're just kind of don't like to be part of the machinery of death. Like if you're facilitating in any aspect of the suicide, you are complicit in it, I guess is your problem. I always thought of it as like competing interests. Like the person is experiencing some sort of like pain, like they're suffering. I always thought like suffering is worse than death, right? And so if somebody is suffering, like let's say they have a terminal diagnosis and they're suffering, and I don't mean like some sort of mental thing, but like a physical ailment, there's no way out of this, right? This is a terminal diagnosis. You got 18 months. And they're not going to be great 18 months, right? And so if that person decides, I'm going to just spend the last 2 months, selling my affairs, doing whatever, and then on this date, I'm going to just, fuck off, right? To me, no problem with that. Like, there's no issue there because they're doing it in their life is coming to an end anyways. There is no prospect of some sort of like recovery. They're suffering through it. What's the point of the suffering? And then they so like, I mean, I wouldn't be like there to press the button, but like, fine, go ahead. If you want to end your life in that situation, I don't see the problem with it. I'm not experiencing your suffering. So it's kind of weird for me to have any sort of,
and you're a very, not to make this about you, you take a very sanguine approach to life, to the world, right? You don't experience life as suffering. And I don't mean to don the black hair dye and the cigarette and the leather jacket and the Doc Marten boots and do my best. What is life but suffering? Existentialist philosophy class asshole kind
You
of
said
thing
this
here.
wasn't philosophy with Abe, and it clearly is.
clearly
and I'm
is.
going to be mad because now it's 10:15.
But
We're going to lose all our money in Vegas.
Existence.
You just cannot control yourself.
existence is suffering, Abe. And I agree with you that the to ameliorate that suffering is annihilation, right? The best way to ameliorate the suffering that is existence is to annihilate that existence, and it is my firmly held belief that the destruction of a physical body results in the destruction of consciousness, and that there is no second act in any meaningful way. There's a possible case, I would argue, of time dilation, a sort of phenomenon of the end of one's life and one's perception of it becoming so strangely experienced that this time dilation happens, and you feel like an afterlife might be approaching in some way, right? Like the seeing of the light or whatever. There's a study that I saw. I didn't read the study, obviously, but I saw headlines and read an article about some study about like being in the zone this week, and how similar to say Michael Jordan imagining that the rim is like 8 feet wide and he can just fucking toss it in from anywhere, or a car crash happens, and the experience of having been in that car crash is that when you both the experience of being in it and then thinking back on it later, your consciousness convinces you that everything slowed down, that you could look around you and you could see. Even I had an experience of this to some extent in a car crash event that I was a part of. I've told the story, I'm sure, before, but I without getting into it, I remember seeing a purse flying out of a car that was in the middle of a car crash happening, and I watched it in slow motion come out of the driver's side window of this car and fly across 40 feet of asphalt and land on the hood of my car. Like, I watched all of this happen in bullet time, in Neo in the Matrix bullet time.
That's how I watched Holden push the TV off of the ledge and watch the TV fall down.
In moments of great anxiety, of heightened consciousness, you can feel time literally expand around you. How did I get there? Talking about a moment of death.
Jesus
right?
Christ.
So in this, I don't think an afterlife exists, but I can imagine the brain playing tricks on you to such an extent that a person becomes convinced of an afterlife of some sort. I think that what we have here is essentially all that we're ever going to have, right? And I think that if a human being can be said to have a purpose or a duty to the moment, it is to be an observer of reality. And in a weird way, quantum physics speaks to this.
It is going to get late if we're going to get into quantum physics. So maybe put a little...
I don't know anything about quantum
bookmark.
physics, except to say that, like, when they talk about observable reality, essentially what it comes down to is that reality doesn't exist but for the observer, right? And things get weird with that in very obvious ways. But I think that that's also fundamentally true, that if all of human consciousness, or all consciousness, I don't know, I wouldn't limit it to human consciousness, actually. But if
That's why it's okay to kill the cats.
If conscious life were eliminated from the known universe, the universe would cease to exist in a way, right? It would still be there. I think physically, in all likelihood, it would still be there. But without a consciousness to experience it, whether that's a relatively stupid whale or a relatively smart whale, like in James Cameron's Avatar series, everything is just too painful for the whales. Without something to experience it, the universe is impoverished in an important way. I don't think that I'd go quite so far as to say that it ceases to exist. But the lack of a consciousness to experience the world around us makes for a poorer reality. And I think that goes for every consciousness, not just consciousnesses writ large. And that's why, though I empathize with people who are experiencing great suffering, and I don't know the sort of pain that they're in, right? I cannot fathom experiencing that level of sort of constant dread or constant physical pain or whatever that would lead me to want to annihilate my consciousness, right? It's just not a disease. It's not even a symptom of a disease that I have. Like I simply cannot identify with the wish to self-annihilation. I don't think. And that is, I'm incredibly fortunate in that way, obviously. And I again empathize with the pain and the suffering and the discomfort. My instinct, my intuition here is always in the opposite direction, though, which is the preservation of life rather than the annihilation of it. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'll make sure there's a bunch of links in the show notes. It's an interesting conversation that will only become a larger part of the culture as we move forward, because everyone's just getting so fucking old, right? And the number of people who are going to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's over the course of the next 20 to 40 years is going to dwarf the current population of Alzheimer's. Yeah. So we're all going to know people who are diagnosed with degenerative diseases that are going to eat their brains or otherwise eat their bodies. And there will be this weird incentive as we get a majority of the population that's like fucking 65 and older. Not necessarily a majority, but like an increasing share, an unprecedented share of the global population is going to be old. Yes. Especially in the developed world. And all of our incentives are going to sort of point towards a liberalizing of, not to go full Sarah Palin in the death panels here, but like a liberalizing of these assisted suicide laws. And so what we're seeing in Switzerland and Canada probably points in the direction that we're headed, more so than the anti-Jack Kevorkian stuff of the late 90s and the 2000s, the uproar that we experienced here does.
Also, I don't think people are waiting for the laws to change to kill themselves. I mean, people are killing themselves all the time, every day.
Well, certainly in the United States with easy access to violent means. And it is like, to me, it is inhumane to ask people to, well, if you want to do the job, there's plenty of avenues for you to pursue in the form of the wrong end of a gun or a tall building or what have you. It would be to my preference that the ends not be so violent, but obviously that's the second step. The first step is convincing them otherwise. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm of competing thoughts here on the entire question, certainly, and I don't remember if we've talked about it in the past or not, and what my previous thoughts would have been. I can't imagine that they were terribly
they were the same,
distinct from what I've expressed here tonight. Anything else you'd like to add on the question?
No, and just to reinforce my position, like I always think like. I'm of sound mind and body, so it's kind of hard to relate to somebody who is not, especially of body and also of mind if you're just like, depressed or whatever, right? So it's kind of hard to like relate to what they're going through. So like, I'm just going to defer to you, like, do whatever. If you're into that, then have at it.
Yeah. All right, let's, after that pleasant conversation, let's go ahead and roll the dice and figure out whether or not the culture has been meaningfully degraded over the course of our lifetimes. We have landed in year number 11 of our game. Abe might suggest it's one of the best years to land in. That will bring us to 1993, forgive me. And spot number 51 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, just nearly dead in the middle. At the top of the Billboard Hot 100 this week is once again Die With a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. But we don't care about the top of the charts. We instead have to scroll and scroll.
Relating to the last conversation.
Die With a Smile. How about that? Number 51 this week is a song called Drive by an artist we have had before, SZA. is the name of the artist. And I only know that SZA is someone we've had before because I had to guess at the pronunciation of the name. I don't know this song, though, so let's find that. I wonder if it's a cover of the great song by The Cars called Drive. I doubt that it's a cover of Drive by The Cars.
You can't go wrong thinking nothing's wrong. Who's gonna drive you home tonight?
There's a song by Dispatch called Drive.
Hey, I wanna drive. I'm alright if you're alright.
Very high production value video I think we're about to watch here. That's Ben Affleck.
No, that's Ben Stiller.
Ben Stiller, same
Close
thing.
enough.
Driving up to midnight, driving in nowhere, bumping a slow song, can't get my head clear. Driving out to sunrise, headed to nowhere, hoping that someone's missing me somewhere. Driving, just driving, just trying to get my head right. It'll all be better when I just gotta get my head right. And don't wait to save me, you all alone in the mind is insane. I know but it don't feel the void at all. And I promise my mama do better, but they keep trying me. So I'm with all the bullshit and fuck it all. I keep pretending everyone's as good as me. She's so weird I cannot speak. Why so hard I think I peak. All my exes still love me. Call me a P1 a freak. All my ops looking distressed. How you copied and compete? Well, you just mad that your nigga want me. Well, you just mad that we went 10 weeks. Well, you just mad that your ass ain't free. Scared to say shit so you fake key. Scared to cut a nigga so I laugh ski. I ain't scared of shit so I swing my knee. I ain't scared of shit so I lift my knee.
All right, I'm going to stop right there.
Jesus Christ.
Waited for something to happen. And
No, nothing was ever going to happen. You
The-
know how these songs go. If it doesn't happen, it's not going to.
the exciting thing that happened is that SZA started singing the bad word, and that's when Ben Stiller stopped mouthing along to the lyrics. The video is Ben Stiller in a car at night, singing along, sort of like there was an old Elton John video that came out in the early 2000s, and Robert Downey Jr. Just walks around this mansion singing this song, but it's an Elton John song, but it's Robert Downey Jr. giving the performance of the song in the video.
But I want love, just a different kind. I want love, won't break me down, won't break me up, won't fence me in. I want love that don't mean a thing. That's the love I want. I want love.
Similarly, Ben Stiller driving around at night giving the performance of this song, but notably stopping that performance when SZA starts rapping the N-word, because Ben Stiller is a fucking coward, I think is what we've learned tonight.
That should be easy to beat, right?
I hate that kind of music so
A
much.
lot of bad R&B in 1993. I
But
don't know.
at least it's regular.
All right, the week of January 10th, 1993, the number one song in all the land was, as Lori suggested, Abe's favorite song, I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. There's a second favorite song behind Savage Garden. And all right, Boys to Men and Bobby Brown and TLC and Madonna all in the top 10 this week in 1993. Heading down to the middle of the chart. Let's see here. Number 51 is a Duran Duran tune
Okay.
called Ordinary World. Lori, you don't like Duran
No,
Duran,
I don't.
do you?
But I hate them less than other 80s bands.
we just missed out on Def Leppard and Michael Jackson.
Duran Duran is maybe my least, the one I least hate the most.
Coming from a rainy Thursday on the avenue, thought I heard you talking softly. I turned on the lights, the TV, and the radio. Still I can't escape the ghost of you. What has happened to it all? Crazy summer say, where is the life that I recognize? Come on, but I won't cry for yesterday. There's an ordinary world somehow I have to find. And as I try to make my way to the ordinary world, I will learn to survive.
All right, that's enough of that. That's a memorable song that I certainly remember the chorus of. I don't remember much else about it. My vote is for Duran Duran in 1993. I swear I've heard that song covered before by someone else, and I'm just not sure who. Lori, you got a vote?
Obviously, that one's better.
Duran Duran. Abe?
Obviously, that one is better.
Like you could play 2 minutes of farts, and I would like that more than that SZA song.
Played 2 minutes of farts for you last night sitting on the couch.
To be fair, you do that every night.
Adam Lambert covered this song in 2022.
Oh, I bet it kicked
there you go.
ass.
You bet it kicked ass?
He's great.
Where is my friend when I need you most? Gone away, but I won't cry for yesterday. There's an ordinary world somehow I have to find. And as I try to make my way to the ordinary world, I will learn to survive.
It's a nice melody. It's a nice chorus. It's a nice song.
And as I try to make my way to the ordinary world, I will learn to survive.
It's better than that other one. It's not close.
I think we've landed on this chart or one much like it before this
Probably.
this January 1993.
Well, we've been doing this for a year.
We have. We've been doing this for
So
some
you're
time
going to
now.
feel that way about every week.
You're going to have to refresh this game at some point. The people are going to be tired of it. If
The people don't listen.
we
It's not a
aren't
problem.
already. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Substack, brainiron.substack.com. For more from us, you can also check us out on... No, that's not true. Check out Marc Gillig at tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. For more from Mark, who composed our opening and closing themes. Sorry, I was distracted by the score of the Vikings-Rams game. It's going to need some real hero ball from my boy Sam Darnold, currently down 27-9 going into the fourth quarter.
Oof.
What we're rooting for here is a finish of 29-27 is our ideal scenario. So 3 touchdowns and 1 missed extra point for the Vikings in the fourth quarter is what we're hoping for here.
Failing that, I'll have a perfect week.
Eat shit, Abe. How about that? Did you go to the movies this week, you piece of shit?
I did. Speaking of shit, I went to go see Den of Thieves 2. I don't know if you've seen the first one, but
Nope.
this is a sequel to that. How could you not see the original? What a classic. Actually, that also sucked. So this is a Gerard Butler movie. And in the first installment...
You cut off the title. It's Den of Thieves 2, Pantera.
Yes, there you go. Pantera.
That fucking rules. How could this movie not be awesome?
So for those who are listening who happen to watch the first movie... Ice Cube has a kid who looks
The
a little
classic
like him.
from 2018. It's been 7 years.
7 years ago, they did the first one. 50 Cent was in it. He didn't survive. Spoiler. And also, Ice Cube's kid is in this movie, and throughout the movie, he just looks like just the driver of like this outfit that robs things, but he turns out to be the mastermind, right? And he gets one up on Gerard Butler, who's the cop, right? He doesn't think highly of Ice Cube's kid, but it turns out he's like the guy behind everything. So he gets away with like millions of dollars stolen from the Fed. Apparently there's some sort of mechanism at the Fed where old money they get rid of, and before they shred it, they went in and stole it. So that way it's like it's not registered anywhere, it's just free money. And they somehow went into the Fed and they stole the money. The movie ends. Ice Cube's kid survives. Gerard Butler is seething. He's upset. This is the first movie. Fast forward all these years later, this is a few years later in the universe, Gerard Butler locates Ice Cube's kid in France. They're getting ready to do some new crime over there. He flies over to France, confronts them, and he tells them, hey, I want in on the action. I'm tired of being a cop. This is a total obvious ruse. He's still a cop. He just wants to get Ice Cube's kid to tell him what crime he's about to commit next, and the idiot does it. He's like, "Oh, I guess this guy got tired of his policing ways," and Gerard Butler becomes one of them, and then they steal money from like some diamond district, whatever, another very fortified place. They somehow manage to escape, and at the end, guess what? Gerard Butler calls in the police on them, and they all get arrested except for him. And the movie kind of ends there. Some mafiosos retrieve Ice Cube from prison because he's such a good thief, which would set it up for Den of Thieves 3. I don't know what the subtitle to that will be, but it's just a dumb movie. The first
Def
one was
Leppard.
very loud dumb. This was a more measured dumb. And so I guess it's better in that regard, but a dumb movie.
I have I have an important question. I can't handle it. Is this Ice Cube's kid in real life, or is this kid... Ice Cube was in the previous movie, and the character had a kid? I'm lost on...
So
No, it's
Ice Cube,
Ice Cube, the
in the
human
real world,
being.
had a son who looked somewhat like him. I mean, he's a little chubbier than
Okay, so
he
the
had
actor...
Yes.
The actor, Ice Cube,
Yeah.
had a kid.
Yes.
And that kid is in this movie.
Yes.
And Ice Cube has nothing to do with
Ice
this
Cube,
movie.
the elder, has nothing to do with this movie other than the
Okay,
fact that I can't
cool.
remember this kid's name, and I have to refer to him.
That's fine.
as
That's
his-
fine. I was just very
Yes.
confused.
But between the two movies, same thing with Gerard Butler. They've been on a eating tear because this is. I mean, I know it's been 7 years, but like they have been. They look different.
Couple of hefty fellas.
They look a little different. But
oh, good for them.
yeah, good for them. Yeah, in many cultures, that's a positive.
Gerard Butler was in 300, and he looked like that, and he doesn't ever have to look like that again.
Yeah,
That was perfect.
those days are long gone.
It's fine. It's fine. You don't have to maintain that. You do that once.
Yeah.
You make a movie.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Everybody in the movie looked great. No one should ever have to do that to their bodies again.
I don't want to...
I'm going to look at a poster for 300.
Jesus Christ, Lori.
What?
I don't want to doubt your movie choices here, Abe. But, like, Nosferatu is out there in the world, right? Like the Dracula remake by the Robert Eggers fella, right?
Yes.
There's I guess that the Adrian Brody movie's not playing wide anywhere.
It is finally coming to a theater near me this weekend.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3
no interest
is
in Sonic
wide
the Hedgehog.
release.
I saw the first two, not interested. For whatever reason, that Nosferatu movie does not compel me to show up to watch it in theaters. I'll watch it when it comes in streaming. And yeah, so like The Brutalist is going to be out this weekend. I'll watch that.
There's like a horror movie out too.
There's a new.
good one.
Isn't there like a
Like
new?
Wolfman?
I guess the Peter Pan Nightmare movie wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
But like Wicked is still out there, right?
Zero
Probably.
interest in that. Yeah. And again,
I know you don't have, but Den of Thieves 2? Like this is a Cinemax ass sequel. This is not.
I think it was the number one movie in the country, Bob. How dare you?
Oh yeah, what was the number? 8 million?
Like, I don't know, 15 million? Respectable January number. These are the shitty months of the...
Isn't there some Lion King movie in theaters still?
Yeah,
too?
there's a Lion
Mufasa.
King prequel, but it's live action.
This
It's
this
the
last
origin
month...
story of Scar.
Yeah, this last month has been a terrible stretch in the movie world. For whatever reason, I'm not like the Moanas and the Mufasa and the Wicked and I just no interest in those movies. On the TV front, on HBO, I watched The Pitt. It's the people that
Yeah.
the same people from like the ER and the West Wing, and they got Noah what's his face who was also on ER. What's weird about this show is that they released the first 2 episodes, and I guess the rest are going to be weekly releases. But I think we briefly mentioned 24 last week.
Let's just watch that.
This is an ER type of show. Like the setting is in an emergency room in a fictional hospital in Pittsburgh. But the format is 24. There are 15 episodes, and each episode is an hour. And it's just one shift. The problem
Okay. Does it have the clock ticking during commercials?
Yeah, no ticking
Then
clock.
I don't
Also, nothing is happening. 2 episodes into any season of 24, Jack Bauer has killed somebody. Something has happened, right? But we are 2
So
episodes.
many people have died in 2 episodes.
But seriously, this episode, even the people that are like, I think one person died, like, they had some sort of heart ailment, but it's very much like if you've seen an ER episode, it's like that. But I want to see where they're going with this format, because at the beginning of each episode, it's like, oh, it's now 7 a.m. Now it's 8 a.m., but nothing happens. It's just a regular show. So early on, I don't get it, but maybe it'll build. Maybe hour 10 will be interesting. I don't know.
My favorite part about watching 24 was always that, much like the criticism of Game of Thrones in the latter years, was like, you can't possibly traverse this global map in the way that they're suggesting that these characters are traversing the global map, right? Like there's no fucking... The dragons are not Concorde jets. And yet they're moving whole armies from one continent to the next over the course of a single episode. In 24, they'd show like somebody in traffic, like just mad in traffic for like fucking 14 seconds. It's like, okay, but now the traffic is done, and they are clear across town fucking 2.5 minutes later.
Right. The advantage was
All
that it
very
was like
silly.
set in LA, so I was like, I don't know the lay of the land there. If they did that like about Atlanta, I'm like, oh, I know you can't go from Alpharetta to Midtown in like 2 minutes. Like, get out of here. That's not possible.
Right.
But that's the whole point of 24, is that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they lean into the
You can't
ridiculous.
have cell phones in those buildings.
Yeah.
Like, the concept of the show is over. You can't get into those buildings without mounds of paperwork.
Anyway, we watched a bunch of
We didn't
football.
watch anything except
We watched an episode of Squid
we
Game.
watched one episode of Squid Game and some Vegas YouTube, and then we played a video game.
We've been playing a video game called
It's too hard.
Cuphead.
Cuphead?
Cuphead.
Okay.
It is released, I think, initially a few years ago, 2020 or something like that. And it is a wonderful little video game. We got it on sale on the PlayStation download app or whatever the fuck for like $13. Pick it up if you have. I think it's on PC. It's on
Switch.
Nintendo Switch. It's on It's on PlayStation, probably on
It's
Xbox
not
also.
complicated.
Not complicated. Very easy for anybody who games at all. What's fun about it is that it reminds me a great deal of playing Super Mario Brothers when I was a child, because you do the same level 1 million times because you just keep
Can't do it.
fucking dying.
Right.
You just die and you die and you die
You
and
have
you're dying.
lives, and when you die, you're dead. There's no way to get more.
Okay.
Right. Now, the good news is, unlike in Super Mario Bros., when you would die, you had your 3 lives, maybe you get a few more every time you get a free life. But
None of that.
your progress would reset to World 1-1 once you died, right? Like, so whatever you accomplished
Yeah.
in
Oh God.
Super
The
Mario
Dark
Bros.
Ages.
Once you died, you had to start over. In this game is not quite that cruel. Every level,
It's like Mario 3.
right, every level is extremely difficult and hard to get through, and you will die 1,000 times as you go through it. But it does at least, like, if you've beaten a level,
It saves your progress.
you've beaten that level.
Yeah,
You don't
like in
you don't
Super
reset
Mario 3.
all the way to the very beginning, right? The art on this game is just fucking joy.
It's so good.
It's delightful. All of the it's a 1930s cartoons aesthetic. All of the art direction stuff is fucking
Just perfectly done. You would think that they just ripped them from 1930s cartoons.
right. The sound effect work is spectacular. Like just the most sad. Like when you kill different enemies, they make different sounds, of course, and all of those decisions have been made correctly. And like you don't know that. You don't know how many times, how many different like the breaking of a jar sound they went through to get the exact right sound effect for the death of that enemy. But like they found the right
You are
one.
the death. You are the jar sound.
I am the jar.
We
sound.
are the jar. That jar crash. That's up. That's
Right, but okay, but then the tree stump. When you kill a
Yeah.
tree stump, it makes a particular sound that is the exact right sound that you want that tree stump to make when you kill the tree stump. And like it's just
so satisfying.
it's just a very satisfying game. As frustrating as it is, it's also incredibly
we
satisfying.
played it for many hours.
How far
We're
along?
not good.
How far along do y'all get?
like
not.
30% accomplished, and it's
The
a very
other thing
small
is-
game, I think.
Our kids are better at it than we
Yeah,
are.
our kids were immediately better at it than we are. It's
Oh.
just the first time that I've experienced
It's
that, I
happening.
think.
We're old and
Yeah.
they're not.
Yeah. But they don't have the hate rage win that I have, and so I will beat the game before
And-
they do in all likelihood.
They don't have the. We're smarter than they are still, but their reaction time is better. Like,
Yeah.
This is the first time that we've experienced a slower reaction time than the kids, which sucks.
Yeah.
Because I always thought that my dad was just like out of shape when it came to like Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
My dad plays guitar. He should be able to play Guitar Hero. And I mean, he was probably 60 then, 50, I don't know. Sucked at it.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What's your problem?" And he was like, "I'm old."
Anyway, that was a lot of fun, and if you are a gamer of any sort and you have one of those systems lying around, go ahead and get Cuphead. It's a great deal of fun.
I started watching Shoresy.
Shorzy, what is that?
It's a spin-off of Letterkenny and their Canadian
Oh,
sitcom. Yeah, whatever.
how is it?
Treadmill show.
Good.
It's funny. Yeah, it's crass and Canadian. It's crass, but nice.
Yeah. That's good.
And otherwise, I'm just nothing else to add. I don't think.
We're watching Vegas videos.
Yeah,
We're watching
Vegas
it's
videos.
so fun.
Getting ready for our big Vegas trip coming up in less than 2 weeks. As far as a recording schedule goes,
The most exciting thing for people to listen to.
yeah.
The
I
next,
don't know what we want to do. Do we want to record this week again, like Thursday night,
Not particularly.
before,
Yeah.
so we can do a proper sports preview situation?
want to.
I'll be around. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let's plan on that. And picks wise, you have to pick if you're out there somehow still listening to this. We want the 4 NFL games and the national
Right.
title game. Those will be the five games that we are picking for the CIB Pick'em game purposes. And then let's, on the back end, I think we should plan to record on Tuesday of next week.
The day
rather
after the
than
national title game, right? Yeah.
Monday, so that we can discuss the national title game on Monday. We
Okay,
can
but
discuss
Tuesday I don't get home until late,
the Trump inauguration.
so we don't have time. You guys are going to have to start without me.
We'll start without you. We'll start early on Tuesday with the news and politics show, and then do the sports show second.
Because I would rather be at work than talk about politics on Tuesday.
It'll be fun.
It's going to be fine.
Will
I'm
this
gonna be
be
tired from being up too late on Monday.
will this be like Den of Thieves 2, American Carnage 2? Like there'll be like a follow up to the last.
It's going to be.
Oh no, I
boring.
think it's all sunshine and rainbows from him.
Oh, yeah?
In the second inaugural. Yeah, it's it'll be super weird. Abe, anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then. And we will talk to you next time.
Later.
I hope everyone's phone stops working as well.
Yeah.
Downloading these shitty. Get off TikTok, you weirdos!
Everybody's on TikTok. It's insane.
Like, why?
They get all of their, because they get everything.
And why are all the people on the TikTok acting like TikTok is the only thing that can be monetized or whatever it is? Like, does Instagram not do that? Does Snapchat people still use?
It seems like everybody's got in
I don't
on
understand. Anyway,
Instagram has
whatever.
a similar
The point is,
thing,
people
right?
make things political that's not.
this. Right. Like Instagram has Reels, like YouTube has Shorts, like so everybody's like
Yeah.
modeling.
Yeah, there's something about the way TikTok's algorithm works, though, where these that author that we've talked about a couple times before, Jason Pargin, found himself surprisingly successful on the TikTok app, where like he's doing videos that are getting like 8 million views or 12
Yeah,
million
but like, is
views.
he gonna starve now?
No, he's not going to starve, but it's like it becomes this thing where it's like, holy shit, like this is working for me in a way that previous things have not. And like I for one, and obviously as someone who's never found any success in doing any sort of social media
Well, it's
marketing of
'cause you
anything that
don't.
I've ever put out there content wise, the closest I've gotten to search engine optimization is the fact that I put out a bunch of reviews of A Christmas Carol, the various different Christmas carols on my blog a few years ago. And so every December I get like a spike in traffic of people
It's pretty cool,
who are
'cause
just
they're good.
Googling A Christmas Carol.
And they're accessible
Yeah, sure.
and marketable. Like, so you can do that. You just choose not to.
Right. Well, I have to, as the spirit moves me, so I will be moved. Anyway, back to the fires, I guess. 99.5% win probability for the Los Angeles Rams.
Might as well round up,
Fuck you, Jimmy Carter, you bastard.
but at least you hedge, you know.
At least I hedged.
Or something.
Lori, don't be sad.
I'm not sad. I'm tired.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.